8 o'clock, and this is the Bob Leonard Show. We'll be with you for about an hour, and we take the stories that you've been reading about in the newspaper and watching on television the last week or so, and we give you the story behind those stories. We put our spin on it. As we say, we read between the lines. And as we tell you every week, it's only our opinion, and you can accept or reject it, but we're obviously going to have our say. Now, this program will be repeated on Wednesday night, tomorrow night, from 11 till 12. For those of you who want to see it and may have missed tonight's show. It also appears round the clock on flinttalk.com. If you punch that in on your computer, you'll come up with the show, and as I say, it goes 24 hours a day. So there's those 3 opportunities to see the show again. But anyway, we have a number of things that we want to discuss tonight that you've been reading about and watching on television this week. And one of them is that we'll try to answer the question on whether or not the new senior citizens millage money is nothing more than a boondoggle for special interest groups, as some suggest, or a well-intentioned program to help some of our most needy, our senior citizens. Or could be maybe a little of both. We have some thoughts on it, and we'll share them with you tonight. And, another question we want to ask is, have you been watching the Flint City Council's most recent imposition on the liberties of the citizens of Flint by its charade of enacting an unnecessary and redundant city curfew law that permits the arrest of young citizens and parents for actions which may not even be a violation of law? And we want to, time permitting, also question whether the Flint School Reorganization Plan adopted last year was effective. Was it well designed by a qualified educator? And today we want to know where that plan stands. Is it progressing? Is it falling behind? Just what's happened. But first we want to talk to you about the apparent dispute between Flint Mayor Don Williamson and Sheriff Bob Backel about how to resolve the county jail overcrowding that has resulted from Williamson's and the Flint Police Department's crackdown on criminal offenders who have warrants in the city of Flint on them. This problem, the question is asked, whose is it? The city or the county? I guess it doesn't make much of a difference. The bottom line is the taxpayers will have to ante up no matter whose responsibility it is to get the problem solved. But anyway, we have a clip we want to show you right now. Could you run that, please?
Help police house the offenders. TD5's Mike Terry has more.
Flint police beefed up patrols over the weekend, Friday and Saturday night, and it found a lot of surprise criminals behind bars.
And it also gives officers the power to do their job. It's a very important tool to have to be able to actually latch on to somebody and say, look, you're going to jail. It shocks some people because we haven't had this on a regular basis here in quite some time.
The city calls it criminal-directed patrols, beefing up the number of officers in different areas of the city at different times. Last weekend netted them 116 people, all in the city jail that opened up Friday and Saturday night just for the occasion. Of those arrested, 252 felony and misdemeanor arrests took place. Criminals who have been ducking police and avoiding jail because of overcrowding were surprised to find themselves behind bars.
To the people I dealt with, were surprised they were getting arrested, but
during the arrest, 2 illegal handguns were taken, and of course, drugs were seized. Of the 116 individuals, 27 of them were arraigned and remanded to the Genesee County Jail. Chief Gary Hagler thanks all of his officers involved in this weekend's arrest.
And Chief Hagler warns criminals, saying if they don't take care of those warrants, they will find room for them in the city jail. In Flint, Mike Terry, WNEM TV5.
And Flint plans 7 years since it was up and running.
I think these departments ought to work more closely together. Here's what. Keep in mind that the Flint City Jail has a capacity of 120, so when they make the arrest, they can put 120 in there, but they only keep them for 72 hours. Then they have to be arraigned, and if they're arraigned and they're remanded to a jail, it's to the county jail. And here we have a county jail that has a capacity of 580 people, and invariably it has that many in there. And if it gets over that, it only has 10 days, and then it has to, according to a federal court order, must begin releasing some of these people. So the question is often, who do you release? That's a judgment that the courts and the sheriff have to consider, and sometimes it's very tough, because if you release somebody that goes out and commits another crime, you get the blame for it, even though the federal court has ordered it. But here's what the problem is. The sheriff and this was an article, was in the Journal this past about a week ago. It says the sheriff and the county board chairman, Archie Bailey, have warned that reopening the city jail could worsen the county's overcrowding problems. I don't think there's any question about that, but what does the police, the city police, and the Williamson people do about this? There must be an answer. But what bothers me is the response we got from Williamson. His response is, when he was asked about this problem with the overcrowding of the county jail and the eventual release of certain people that is being caused by the influx of the people that the city police are now arresting. This was his answer. That's not our problem, said Flint Mayor Don Williamson. Williams suggested the county address its jail problems if it has concerns. Quote, do whatever you have to do. We're not going to leave the criminals alone, said Williamson. Well, there's got to be, it seems to me, more cooperation between the mayor and the county on this matter. They ought to sit down and see if there's something that can be worked out. For example, if you have an overcrowding and there are people that that will have to be let go, if these are bad people, maybe we ought to be thinking about, as we've done in the past, getting together with some other county and using some of their unused jail space. We've talked to them about that, and they're willing to do that. Shiawassee County, for example, has jail space and has indicated they're willing to come over and pick the people up. You know, obviously you have to pay them for the use of their space, but maybe that's part of the answer. But nobody seems to really want to sit down and discuss it. They just want to take pot shots. And that's unfortunate. Well, anyway, that's, last week we also told you there's a new speed trap that has been established in one of our frequently used communities that has been instituted, not necessarily to guarantee better safety, but primarily to raise additional money for the governmental coffers while using most of your police to hide out in parking lots or side streets to catch speeders may be good fiscal policy. However, in my mind, it's bad law enforcement policy, especially when police are being taken off their police duties, like responding to other criminal activities, and put in the job of chasing down speeders. You know, speeders can be dangerous, but if we have to do that, maybe they ought to be hiring new police officers. But here's what's happened here. Here's the community's involvement. Presently, the Flint Township supervisor has decided that the police should be writing tickets, and that he wants 4 times the number of traffic tickets issued this year, 2007, than was issued last year, because the township needs the money. As a result, most police officers are being assigned to writing tickets rather than doing their own police work, like investigating criminals and crime. So a word to the wise: when driving through Flint Township, whether on Miller Road, Corunna Road, Linden Road, or any road in Flint Township for that matter, don't forget there are people out there that are going to be writing you tickets so that they can make money for their township. Now that's true unless you're probably a burglar driving within the speed limits. Then you may be safe because the cop that's supposed to be out there looking for you is out there writing tickets. So the township officials often have sufficient funds in their budget to attend the municipal league conferences in Orlando, Florida, or Miami, or someplace. You know, that when you look at the roads out there, that must be what they're doing with the extra money. Because Flint Township roads are outrageously bad. But I don't think that that's good law enforcement policy, writing tickets just to raise money, especially when you're taking police off their assigned duties. Anyway, let me talk to you about another subject that I think is kind of a new phenomenon in real estate, in buying and selling homes, and signing mortgages, that I don't think many people are aware of. And it's not a good thing that's happening here. In fact, the FBI locally is conducting an investigation into these tactics, which are really kind of unscrupulous. And the people who are getting ready to buy homes, or who have already mortgages on their homes, should be a bit aware of what's going on here, because they could very well lose their homes. Things have changed. You know, years ago we used to go to the local bank or mortgage company, and we knew the people, and we'd get a mortgage. And, you know, if everything would seem to run all right, the mortgage company wanted you to be able to pay for your home, and you wanted to pay for it yourself. You know, if you're a day or two late in making the payment, or a week or whatever, the mortgage company didn't worry too much about it, because you would make it up. That was the kind of relationship we had. Now, today, the FBI is investigating unscrupulous financial institutions that are carrying out really dishonest practices that are cheating hundreds of local citizens out of thousands of dollars of their hard-earned money when they signed up on a mortgage when they were purchasing a home. these are called what are termed predatory lenders. Now, predatory has a definition. It means living by plunder or robbery. And I think that definition fits these type of people. Now, many of these people who are banks and mortgage companies who are participating in this are kind of newcomers to the community. They don't have reputations. Now, many of these banks and mortgage companies allegedly are participating in this scheme, have had their records and their computers seized by the federal government just recently. And I think that this is a national investigation because the predatory lenders are now big time all over this country. What happens is these people come in and they offer loans at very low interest rates. It's a come-on type situation. Invariably, one of their tactics is to get you so overextended in paying the mortgage payments that you ultimately are either late on it or you may even forfeit it, because they set it up so that they set a mortgage up where it is more than what your income can pay. The whole idea is to have you miss a payment or miss a day, or if you're paying the taxes individually, to miss your tax payment. Then they immediately come in and foreclose and evict you. This is the scheme. Let's get them to miss a day or be a day late or have their taxes go in arrears, even though you have time to recover from it. And the law permits it. They rush in and foreclose on your property and evict you. That's the scheme. So as a result, when they set up your mortgage, if you deal with them, they set it up so you're guaranteed to fail. Your income won't let you cover the mortgage that you ultimately get into. Now, once you miss a day, for example, you miss one day, you're late one day. In the olden days, the mortgage company or the bank locally wouldn't really do anything about it because they knew you'd pay it. But this new system, this scam that the FBI is checking out now, is intended to create that situation so they can foreclose on your property, evict you, and then resell it. And all the equity you have in the property you lose. That's how they benefit. For example, if you have a house that's worth $100,000 you've been paying on for 20 years, and you owe $50,000 more and it has an evaluation of $100,000, they take your house because you're late one day on your taxes, even though you have a right to pay it within a certain period of time and you don't lose your property. They immediately foreclose on the basis that you haven't paid your taxes. Be the one day after it was due, they're foreclosing on you. Or if you don't make your mortgage payment on the exact day, they foreclose on you. And they evict you within 30 to 60 days. And they take your property and they resell it. And they keep the equity you have in it. So when they resell it, let's say $100,000 property for $100,000, the person buying it again gets into the same cycle, enters into a mortgage with that mortgage company. They keep the $100,000 plus they get the $50,000 of your equity. The result is that you're out in the streets. So the point is, know who you're dealing with locally when you seek a mortgage on a home, and make sure you have a provision in your mortgage that they cannot sell that mortgage, because that's what they're often doing. They're selling to these predatory companies who come in and give them a good price for the mortgage because they know that either you're a late payer or you're a day or two or a week late on your mortgage payment each month. They see that, and they know that they'll get that property because the person or the bank that has the property will sell it to them because they give them a big discount to the selling bank. And the result is that you're out your property, you're out your equity, and everything else. So know who you're dealing with if you come in here. But also keep in mind that if you find out from your mortgage company, if it was a local one, whether they've sold your mortgage to another mortgage company. And who is that mortgage company? Chances are it's a predatory mortgage company who is looking to forfeit your mortgage and evict you and sell your house again and keep all your equity. So be very careful about your payments. Make sure you pay them on time. Best way to do it is have it an automatic withdrawal from your bank account on your payment. And it's better to have your taxes and your insurance in that payment. Because if you make the payment and you're late one day on your insurance or your taxes, they can come in and evict you for that. But if you have an automatic withdrawal and you have the taxes and the insurance included in the payment, you're covered. But when you make when you buy a home and sign a mortgage, make sure the provisions in the mortgage say they can't sell that mortgage without your permission. Most people don't do that, but that's a way to save your money. Now, there is a case just recently that we ran into. Here's a fellow who had a mortgage for 20 years, owned the house for 20 years. The house was assessed at $100,000. He always made his tax payments. They weren't taken out of the mortgage payment. He just wanted to make his own tax payment, and when he'd make them, he invariably was late with the tax payment, but it didn't cost the mortgage company anything, and he was allowed to do it for 20 years by his original mortgage company. They didn't lose anything. He ultimately made the tax payments so the house wasn't forfeited. The mortgage company that had this mortgage for 20 years for this fellow sold it to a predatory lender. There's nothing in the mortgage that says that the owner of the house could make the payment late. So when he does make it late, he doesn't realize his mortgage has been sold to another mortgage company. He assumes everything is going to be the same as it had been for 20 straight years. But the next thing he knows, he's given notice that his mortgage is foreclosed by this new mortgage company, who's a predatory lender. He's told it's foreclosed, and he had given an eviction notice within a week to leave his home within 30 days. He had $50,000 equity in the house. He went to the people and said, hey, I've been doing this for years. I'm going to pay my taxes. I always get them paid. And can't we go back to that, or I'll pay them on time or whatever? And the predatory mortgage company told him, yeah, you can have your house back, but you got to pay us the full price, which is now $100,000, because that's the assessed valuation. And the guy obviously can't make the payment. He doesn't have $100,000. So they sell the house for $100,000 again. They get the $100,000 plus they have the $50,000 equity in the house. So they really made out, and this fellow's left out in the cold. And that's what can happen to anybody under these circumstances. So keeping that in mind, and make sure that you pay your mortgages on time, your taxes on time, because that'll give you the protection you need. Those are called predatory lenders. Presently, the FBI is looking at a conspiracy by these predatory buyers and lenders to force citizens into mortgage arrangements they know the homeowners can't meet, which allows the predator to steal the owner's property by using a legal process of foreclosure and eviction. Hopefully the FBI will be able to do something about this. Anyway, let me go on here. You know, just last July, you might recall, just before the senior citizen millage came up for a vote in the August primary, we discussed on this program our reservations about enacting an $80 million millage tax to pay for senior citizen services, or a dispensing system for the services had not been devised. Also, we were concerned on what services the money would be spent for. We felt that these problems should be worked out before the taxpayers would be asked to put this much money kind of in a wing and a prayer. We told you without this pre-planning, there would be many possibilities that things could go wrong and taxpayers' money could be wasted and misspent. Now, since that time, the millage has passed, and unfortunately, our concerns in our mind have, to some degree, materialized. Now, just this past week, the county commission came up with a plan that used as a criteria in distributing some of the money to the 15 senior citizen centers, a grant given to the Clio Area Senior Citizen Center to build a new senior citizen center. Here you see the county board meeting this past Friday. Now what's unfortunate about this, in my mind, is that the senior citizens who use these centers probably make up 10, 15, 20% of the senior citizen population, if that many. The great majority of senior citizens do not use the centers for whatever reason. Some of them are homebound, some of them are out of town, whatever the case is, they're not using the centers. Now there must be a way we have to devise that will encourage more people to use the centers if these are going to be the vehicles by which we distribute the money and provide the services. Or the centers have to come up with some kind of a program in which they will be able to distribute the services to senior citizens who don't use the centers. Now the money criteria that is used by the county commission this past Friday is based, in my mind, on bad public policy. Keep in mind, paying for a new senior citizens center that the local citizens had already voted to fund with local millage. And of course it was later rescinded after the county senior citizens millage was passed. Why now does the county have to make up that difference? They're talking about giving around $140,000, $150,000 to each one of the 15 senior citizens. And they're going to give $150,000 extra to the Clio Senior Citizen Center to build a new center. Now, we said at that time on our program that this commitment to build Clio's building with county money rather than local money, as they had voted to do and then later rescinded, was unfair to the other centers that had established their senior centers locations before the senior citizen millage had come into existence. Apparently no consideration was given to this reality. Also, we kind of take umbrage with the fact that the distribution system was going to go through the existing 15 senior citizens, as I said, some of which had as few as 20 regular members who operated the center like it was a private club. You have to ask, what kind of services were these centers going to provide? How were they going to service the homebound people? They needed Meals on Wheels. They needed visiting nurses. They needed all kinds of things. There's no indication that that's going to happen. There is no restrictions on how they use the money to speak of. Now, after Friday's meeting, we believe some of our concerns have occurred, unfortunately. Now, as I said, 15 senators given $140,000, $150,000 with no real strings attached. They said that in the newspaper. There will be $8 million raised by that millage this year, and probably 8 or more every year for the next 10 years. That's how long the millage lasts. They could take this money and use it to increase the salaries of the directors or other employees. Now, the resolution that was passed by the county commission concerning how the money is to be spent, they had the centers, the existing centers had to maintain their income or their expenditures that they are receiving from their local government if they're going to get any of this money. But that doesn't mean that if they get this money, they can't raise the salaries of the directors or the employees. I don't know if they're going to do that, but there's no control of that. There's no restriction to speak of. And keep in mind, it's the same amount given to each center. Some have large participation, some are small. That's bad public policy. there's no distinction based on need, apparently. And there's no system established to determine the need. They talk about, well, they're going to do that in the future. But what guarantee do you have of that? They're going to have 80 million or more, maybe 90 million. After 10 years, the tax evaluation of property goes up, so the millage goes up. Clive's going to get this $140,000 every year. Till they have 1,400,000 at least to build their senior citizen. They'll start building it and paying it off within that 10-year period. I'm sure they also will get operational money like the other centers. So are we going to give the other centers the extra $140,000, $150,000 we're giving the CLOW every year, plus additional monies? That hasn't been worked out. That's why the criteria of giving each center $150,000 to start with is a bad idea, because there is no basis for that figure other than that's what we gave Kyle to start building their center. Somebody promised it to Kyle. Not based on any formula or any investigation or survey or study. Just we gave them that out of the blue, and therefore we'll do that the same, or do that for each center. Where's the logic in that? Now, according to the county chairman, Archie Bailey, in his resolution that was adopted this past Friday by the council, or the commission, Flint would be getting $450,000 the total for these operational centers. They have 3 of them that are given this money. Now, Flint, keep in mind, has given $1,250,000 to $300,000, maybe as much as $1,400,000 to the millage each year. As a result, notwithstanding Flint's obvious need for money for our senior citizen centers, the health care, the transportation, the Meals on Wheels, 2/3 of Flint's millage will be going apparently to subsidize out-county senior citizen centers and their needs. Of course, no one objects to the seniors being serviced no matter where they live. But when some of your own, here the Flint citizens, need help and they've paid for it, they should receive paramount consideration. Where was the Flint City Commissioners when this money was being doled out and this $150,000 payout was being determined? The question is, will this treatment of Flint with this formula become the precedent for future 10 years? If it does, the county board will have really institutionalized a racist policy. See, 75 to 80% of Flint seniors are African American. This formula of $150,000 per center is racist also. It's not an intentional racist thing. But because the highest concentration of seniors are found in the inner-city ghettos, and no consideration seems to have been given to this fact when deciding on this formula of $150 to every center. Where was people like Commissioner Stanley and Spees, that represent the city of Flint? Where did they have any discussion on this formula while it was being formulated? You know, this is an example of what I meant when I said the formula for how to help seniors and what help they needed has not been thought out logically and fairly. If it was, Flint would be getting a bigger share of the millage, and a program on law, or a program on how to get health care and transportation to the needy who didn't or can't use the centers. That hasn't been done. You know, like I said, this is not a contrived racist policy of citizens of Kyle, Flushing, Swartz Creek, and Fenton, or any place in Genesee County, or by their representatives. It just works out that way because there was no thought-out plan to avoid such a result. You know, keep in mind there's an advisory group that will participate in this. Some of them may represent special interests. That's all right. There are some very good people on it, like, for example, Stan Marshall. You remember Stan was the regional director of the UAW for many years. He retired a number of years back, but a very concerned, a very knowledgeable guy. So, you know, they'll have people like that on that committee, which hopefully will take into account what's happening in the city of Flint and how to resolve that problem and make sure that the citizens of Flint get their proper service and distribution of the money that they can use for these services. There's a lot of things to think about now on this particular thing. Keep in mind there'll be about 8 million collected. This 150,000 of these centers will take up around $2.5 million. So there's going to be about 4.5 left over, or 5 million left over, that can be used during the year on other projects and other programs. Now, some of these new proposals will come from programs that aren't presently eligible because they're not part of these 15 centers. But they'll be able to propose programs that will go to this advisory group and the planning commission, the county planning commission, which is responsible for putting this into operation. That money can be utilized by funding some of these other programs that are going to be proposed by other organizations that have something to do with senior citizens. And hopefully some of these programs will take into account the problem that has developed because of the Flint situation. Hopefully Flint will be able to get more money because they need it. They put all this money in and they're only getting a third of it back. That's really not right when you consider the great need they have and to whom the need should be directed. You know, at this meeting on this Friday, kind of a disturbing event took place that kind of bothered me. The people, there was about 50 people at this meeting, 50, 60 people. And they were primarily the people who advocated the passage of the Senior Citizens program, or millage, and the people who represented these centers, either directors or employees. When Commissioner Rose Bogardus raised some legitimate concerns on how to measure the success or the failure of these programs, she was hooted down by almost everybody in that meeting. All these special interest groups, they don't like that. They want to make their own decisions. They want to make their own criteria, so they'll never fail. Their programs will show, their criteria will show that they've done a great job, and we really won't know because they're talking about their own efforts. And the treatment of Rose Bogardus, to me, is a bad omen because it suggests that the programs will again continue to run like a club. You know, any suggestions shouldn't be booed. It seems to me it should be embraced and studied, especially when the person making the suggestion is suggesting something that can measure whether or not this $80 million of taxpayers' money is properly being spent and providing the services it was intended. Well, I don't know what's going to happen. She also suggested, and she was booed on this, that maybe some of these centers who are small over here and big here, and they're close enough they can be combined, save money, save administrative staff. They didn't want that either. They all have, as I suggested in my opening remarks, special interests. And they want to preserve and maintain their special interests. Jobs are involved. Because if you change from one center to another, or you combine them, instead of having two directors you're paying money to, you only need one. They don't want to hear that, although in the best interests of the community and the taxpayers, that may be the way to go. But if you suggest it, you'll be ridiculed, you'll be booed out of the place. And you know, keep in mind too, what's going on here with these commissioners is they're pandering to these people because these centers become political organizations for them. And if they make them mad or they anger them, they'll come out opposed to them in their next election. But if they do what they want, they come out in support of them. And that's like a political organization for that commissioner. Well, hopefully somebody will get in there that in these centers that will recognize they have to provide services not only to the people that attend the center, which is 15-20% of the population. I think that's high, the senior population, but also the 80% or 85% who are not being serviced by that center. Some way we have to get them some help in services and spending of this money on their needs. Well, anyway, just recently the city of Flint enacted a curfew law, and it's now taken effect. And can you play that? We have a video on that happening. Can you play that, please, right now?
Thanks for joining us. Today marked the start of a new daytime curfew. Kids 17 and under must be off Flint streets from 9 until 2 o'clock during the school year. Each must also be accompanied by a parent or guardian. If not, the child could face arrest, and parents could face charges and fines. ABC 12's Josh Devine has more on the plan and its hurdles. Josh?
Larry, it is just the first piece of a plan to lower this district's sky-high dropout rate, but few doubt it will take a lot to put this plan into practice. It happens.
It's a really big problem.
Every day, nearly every school.
We have to get the schools under control.
That's why Flint City Council pushed a plan to keep students in school off the streets for the long haul.
We have a problem in the city where 60% of kids drop out. Yes, we have a problem.
The new ordinance is rather simple. Students 17 and under must be off the streets on school days, have a parent or guardian with you, or face an arrest.
We got to give it a chance to work.
Maria Boyd Springer directs pupil personnel services for Flint Community Schools.
I think this is an excellent opportunity for us, the school district, to work collaboratively with the city officials.
It is aggressive, but when it comes to this plan, there are still some things to be figured out.
We don't have the manpower to do that.
Like more police. The mayor's clear. It could take more officers to add in the work of getting students off the streets.
We have to look at the budget and adjust our priorities without jeopardizing public safety.
Then there's the issue of what to do with students police catch off campus.
Well, it would be better, in my opinion, if we could take them to a centralized location. This could be a place where there can be some sort of counseling involved.
Yeah, so I've seen it.
For Sharina McQueen,
Great to get out. I'm ready to go to college.
the new rule could mean less crime, but this soon-to-be grad also says city leaders still have a few lessons to learn.
It's not the solution, but if they can get this going underway, then there can be more solutions to come.
In fact, the second piece of this is a new truancy ordinance for the city of Flint, and city council members are expected to talk about that Monday night. We're live in Flint. Josh Devine, ABC 12.
Now, there's kind of this is a curfew law that in effect has a state law that's comparable. Why are we doing things that are redundant? If you got a state law that covers it, why do you want a city law? And here we have a situation where the councilman that proposed this, Mr. Neely, apparently didn't talk to the police about this, didn't talk to the schools about it, just did it. So the question is, what is he going to accomplish here? If we had a state law, why weren't the police enforcing it in the first place? Because they don't have the manpower to do it. I mean, you got a robbery and a murder or something to be investigated, you're going to be out running around trying to find kids or picking up kids off the street that you don't think is old enough to be out there, supposed to be in school. And see, this law talks about 17 and under. If the primary issue is schools kids, they'll be arresting kids who have reached their 16th birthday before 17th, and they could be quitting school. There could be many reasons they're on the streets legitimately. Now you're arresting them. Now the city's got some legal problems involved. But anyway, it's curfew covers school skips. Be warned, walking down the street in Flint in broad daylight soon will be a crime for young people. Flint's new daytime curfew goes into effect Thursday. That was last Thursday, although there is little likelihood it will be enforced. The new law bans students from all public places between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. on school days. And it punishes parents for violations. Keep in mind, parents, if you don't get them within 3 hours, you can have them arrested. They may be down in Oakland County working at some store, trying to keep their family together. Don Williamson, according to this article, said he doesn't know what the city councils were thinking when they passed the ordinance. We don't have the manpower, he said. And here's Mr. Neely's comments. I do know one thing. Doing nothing is not effective, said City Councilman Sheldon Neely, who pinned the daytime curfew. We can get children out of harm's way now and off the streets during the times they should be in school. Out of harm's way, he says. If the kids are at school, they won't have any problems. Now, you wonder how much thought he gave to that. Play that next video, please.
Say that crime has reached epidemic levels in Flint. Some believe the violence